Hello and welcome to another episode of the Adrienne Ross Show, where sports and culture connect. Friday night, last night, was the debut of the Unrivaled Basketball League. I went live for that. It was quite a buzz in the chat section of the live stream, and I intend to go live for day 2. I just want to do a quick video. I'll get into more detail after a couple days of Unrivaled, but I do want to give a few takeaways from what I saw last night. And then I'm going to jump on a live stream for today. And like I said, get into more detail after a couple games. So after today. Okay. My number one takeaway, and I think this is extremely important. I have the utmost respect for people who have a vision, see something that they want to accomplish, and then they go for it. So saying that, I'm saying that I've got great respect for the initiative taken by Nafisa Collier and Breanna Stewart. Again, all of us can sit back. We get to critique. We get to assess, what do we think about the facility? What do we think about the jerseys? What do we think about the product? I mean, we get to do that. And we should, right? But we also have to say, here are two women who said, we want to see something extra, something better, you might say, for women's basketball. So what do? We don't just sit back and talk about it. What we do is we get out there. How do we make this work? Well, let's see if we can get people who can buy into the vision. So you've got to cast the vision, to use a biblical phrase. You cast the vision, right? You write the vision and make it plain. Then you want to pitch it, and you've got to be able to sell it. You've got to hope that people can see what you see. That's not easy to do, because people can spot mediocrity and the lack of passion a mile away, and people don't want to be involved where there's no passion, right? So I give it to them. And I was thinking, and I said this during the live stream before it actually started, and during and after, it's got to be something to be witnessing, to be living the dream that you worked hard to make come to pass. They lived out the fruition of their labor, of their vision first, and their labor. And then, of course, having other people get involved in that also. Absolute kudos to them. I think it's got to be great for women's basketball, I imagine. But even if it flopped, and I'm not saying it will, and I certainly don't want it to, but even if it totally flopped, you got to say, you know what? There are people who are going to point their finger, and people are going to say, oh, look at the flop. But they didn't flop, the other people, because they didn't do anything. Okay. So nothing ventured, nothing gained, as they say. So kudos to them for doing it. And so cool that they got to actually experience that and be a part of it. That's my first takeaway. Okay. Now, what I saw last night, because I care about women's basketball and how women athletes are perceived, I obviously wanted this to be an amazing debut. I wanted to see them showcase the best basketball. After all, they build this as this is a league with the best players in the world. Now, we know the way it unfolded that was not the case, that every player suiting up in an unrivaled jersey was not one of the best players in the world, because we saw the process. They wanted to get Caitlin Clark. That didn't work out. It seems like they pulled some people in with the hopes that maybe that would entice her to come to the league. And then they had spots to fill. So they got some people in, and then they had Marina Mabry got injured. And so now Natisha Heidemann supposed to come in, and now there's an illness reported for her. I hope she's fine. But in any case, we know this was simply not what they first said it was, but that's how they build it. And it should be, whether it's the best, it should be the highest level of basketball And unfortunately, we didn't get to see that last night. There were too many missed layups to make it plain. And I'm like screaming during the live stream, like I'm shouting out the good stuff. There's a good pass, I'm shouting out the good pass. If there's a block, I'm shouting out the block. I'm doing all that, but I can't act like I don't see the fact that there were layup after layup after layup missed. And in certain points, it's like, okay, they dropped the 3-point shot, but then they're missing layups. And I'm thinking, you got people watching. At least that's the plan. You've got these investors. You've told us this is the best basketball in the world. You've done all the work. And here people are, whether they're in the studio or if they're home watching. It was like remember the finals of the 2024 WNBA season? You've got the Lynx versus the Liberty, Nafisa Collier and Breanna Stewart, right? You've got them facing off, and some of it was so bad. And you're like, ladies, I know you can play ball. I know you. So I'm not up here saying like some people who say, oh, they're just, I mean, but it just, so much of it made me start going like this, and other people also, because I'm like, I'm rooting for you to succeed, and I'm rooting for you to showcase your talent while all the eyeballs that you've drawn in are looking. And if they're not watching, then they're going to catch a highlight here and there. You want that highlight to be good. You don't want the highlight to be missing layups of all things. There were wide open shots missed, layups missed. And I don't mean just a few, I mean a lot. And so that just was like, not because I'm trying to down the ladies, but because I want the ladies to look good out there. And this is, if you're going to tell us this is the best in the world and you're missing as many layups as we saw last night, that's just not good. So I just wish that it looked better. Having said that, takes me to my next takeaway. And that is, I recognize that this was the first night. And as we said during the live stream, as I reminded people throughout, there has to be a certain amount of nervousness, right? Because of the dream that's coming to fruition, because it's something new. Understand, these women who play for the WNBA, when they entered the WNBA, it had already been around. That's not the case with Unrivaled. They are the history makers in Unrivaled. So this is that groundbreaking game. So the nerves going to be there. It's a whole different thing. It's 3-on-3 full court, which, by the way, I always like the full court thing. I don't want to, even if I'm out there, or when I was out there playing pickup basketball, I prefer to go full court even on 3-on-3, because I like the movement. I like the running. So that added something to it. But I have to acknowledge that they were probably dealing with some jitters. So some of the missed layups and stuff. But then after a while, I was like, okay, they'll settle in. They were still missing the layups. But again, let me get back to my third takeaway. Again, there had to be the jitters, had to be the nervousness, the history of it all. That has to play into it. I was glad to see the very first shot of the Unrivaled League win in. That was Breanna Stewart. She hit the shot. I think the first 2 shots taken went in. So that's pretty good. And so the first night, the debut of Unrivaled is in the books. The Lunar Owls overcame a third quarter 10-point deficit, I believe it was, and won on a 3-point shot by Skylar Diggins-Smith, taking down Mist. So Nafisa Collier, co-founder, defeated Breanna Stewart, fellow co-founder. And then in the second game, which really was, I was like, I don't know, I was less impressed by the second game. Impressed is the wrong word for either game, but like I said, I'll give more details later. But in the second game, Vinyl BC defeated Rose BC, and Ryan Howard went off there. So I'm going to save any deeper comments for another time, but I wanted to give you those, I guess you could say, 3 takeaways. And then I'm going to get ready for the next two games of day two. I'm going live for those two games. So join me as the first one is Phantom taking on the Laces, and the next one is Lunar Owls versus Rose. Let me know your thoughts. I don't know if you watched, and if you did, love to know what you think. And if you plan to watch, and I encourage you to do so. It's always good to know what people are talking about, especially if you're a sports fan. So I encourage you to take a look. So I'll catch you next time, God willing. God bless you abundantly. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, please, if you haven't done so.